What was ruined for everyone by one single person? Story 1. Other firefighters constantly ruin any sort of appreciation restaurants give out. We had a barbecue restaurant that would give a flat $10 off your meal. If you didn't spend $10, it was basically free. One guy ruined it on an $8 order by demanding the $2 be given to him as well. Had people going in uniform on days they didn't work. Had one guy had a family reunion at a local restaurant, then made a big issue they wouldn't give his entire party the discount. I don't understand how out of touch people can be. Dude did this at our EMS service, too. Not only did we lose the free on-shift coffees they've been giving us, but our boss put in a policy that we couldn't go out in uniform at all unless on a call, which basically meant no leaving the station at all during shift or standby. They later turned the second one around since it was stupid, but we still hate that guy. I worked at a froyo place, and after a certain number of visits, you'll get a free cup. Technically, the rule was up to $5. However, the owner of the store was really nice and said, if they come here that often, then they should get their one cup free. For a few years it was going well since it's self-service and based on weight. Most people were careful about making their cups and never really overfilling. Sometimes kids would be a little overzealous, but no one really did anything crazy. Eventually, one day, a guy who, in all honesty, was smart, I'll give him that, filled the cup to the brim, then added our waffle cone chips around the edges to create a barrier. He dispensed even more froyo, then made another wall on top of that. He did this about 6 times. I was very invested and also just amazed at how he did this. The average price for a small that was decently filled with toppings, most people were in the $5 to $7 range. This dude managed to make this a $27 cup for free. Basically, because technically it just has to fit into that one cup. The owner asked me about that suspicious transaction, and I told him all about it. He was like, oh, okay, check the cameras, and even he was impressed. This dude ended up telling other people, who then told more people, and so on. At this point, our store was actually losing money on the free cups. It got worse because now people were trying to cram so many toppings into their cups that about 90% of the toppings would end up on the floor. So that was costing us even more. Eventually, we changed up the policy to the $5 max. People weren't happy, but we all gladly explained that people were getting out of hand and we were trying to do something nice, and it was taken advantage of. I mean, that's very clever of the guy. I think they could have probably mitigated that somehow by getting that on record and getting a social media post about it. Maybe telling them what they couldn't do with it and how this guy sort of got away with it. I think that's the way it is. As far as the other ones, the people that are doing good service for the community, I think they need to be paid more. Really, if they have to resort to these kinds of things to get better deals on food and coffee, they should probably just get paid better to begin with. Story 2. At a certain point in U.S. Army basic training, your platoon is given the opportunity to sit and eat without having to wait for the entire company. And with that comes the fact that if one person is finished eating, we're all finished eating. This one trainee who happens to sit early finished his dinner before the other side of the table even got to start. He stood up, then the DS promptly made everyone else get up too, eaten or not. The same trainee did the exact same thing the next day, except now it was breakfast, so a few people didn't get dinner or breakfast. I'll never forget the nasty stuff they did to his bunk and locker, dude. Couldn't really feel bad for him, and you best believe nobody stood up early for the rest of BCT. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. I'm going to try and answer a couple of questions I've read. What did they do to his bunk? They took the used dirty mop bucket water, peed in it, and dumped it over his bunk in Foot Locker. This happened on a Sunday morning, which is the one day the DS will leave you alone till noon. The perpetrator was at church. Was it intentional? No. The first time was a genuine mistake, as it was a brand new rule. I actually watched him the second time. He started to stand and realized his mistake, but the grumpiest DS saw him do that awkward stand-sit movement, and that was it for the table. Luckily, I wasn't on the table that lost the breakfast, but I still felt no sympathy for him. No dinner plus whatever you can eat out the door breakfast would have had me join in too. Was he stupid? Yes. Did anyone explain it to him? Did anyone get to him and say, hey, you see everyone else that didn't eat? Maybe next time, if you get the opportunity, wait for everyone else to finish? I would say, if that didn't happen, or if that did happen and the guy was still an idiot about it, or the guy was still not caring, yeah, he deserved what was coming to him. It's kind of awful that he had to learn that this way. It sounds like they were trying to build teamwork with people. Story 3. Had a job as a dialysis nurse where we added a position to pick up add-ons and emergency cases that came in later in the day. In this role, we worked noon to midnight, which helped us cut down from needing a nurse on call every night to maybe once or twice a week. Whoever took this role didn't have to take calls and had weekends off. We loved rotating through this role and enjoyed taking a break from having to be on call and enjoyed having weekends off. Then there came the nurse who went out at 7 a.m. instead of noon and finished at 5 p.m. When there was an add-on or an emergency case, she wouldn't answer her phone, which meant everyone had to go back to picking up extra patients and being on call again. She did this every time it was her turn to go through the rotation, so they eliminated the position and we went back to having to be on call all the time. That's a bar of soap in a sock moment. Really bad management, in my humble opinion. I hate the approach of punishing everybody for the actions of one person, especially when the identity of the one person is blindingly obvious. That's managerial cowardice, avoiding a one-on-one confrontation with a problem employee. Where I work, we call it issuing policies from under your desk. Yuck. Did no one bring this up to her? Was there any communication? I would hope that someone might have hit her up to what she was doing. But also on this time, I agree with them. The management should have stepped in and said, hey, you're not being a team player here right now. You're not really helping anyone else. Story 4. The guy who claimed vaccines caused autism has some serious blood on his hands. He wasn't even doing it because he actually believed it either. It was literally a scam to discredit a specific vaccine so that he could sell a worse version that he would make money on. He's got a higher body count than most serial unalivers, for frack's sake. The Lancet published that garbage and didn't retract it for over a decade. Didn't cost them one iota of credibility. Yeah, that's the worst part, in my opinion. It's easy to look back with hindsight and think it was dumb to ever believe autism was caused by vaccines, but it was a study done by a doctor, peer-reviewed and published in a very credible journal. So who were you supposed to believe? The doctor that got a study published? Or some other doctors who claims it's all hogwash, and maybe get a study published as well? And this keeps happening. So many times I see people in arguments quote a study to prove their points. But unless you're an expert in the specific field of that study, there's no way for some random schmuck to know whether or not a specific study holds water. Peer review might be the best system we have, but it's still far from foolproof. And sometimes people happily turn a blind eye to those flaws, and it's not a good thing. Story 5. I worked at an office that had casual Fridays. One day a lady came to work on a casual Friday in her gym clothes, and management was uptight and appalled by it. Instead of telling her that she couldn't wear gym clothes to work, they abolished Casual Friday for everyone. It ticks me off to this day. I once had an HR director who explained casual summer work attire perfectly. She said, "It's going to be hot this entire summer, so I'd like to free you all up to dress for warmer weather. But please, dress like you're going to a garden party with Martha Stewart. Don't wear something that'd embarrass her. I'm similar, but with people not wearing name badges. Instead of warning colleagues to wear their badge, they outright banned casual payday weekend dress down altogether. The lady did not ruin Casual Friday. Management did. They could have spoken with her or done something else. Management chose not to. Story 6. That one kid in the classroom that can't just leave their frackin' phone alone. Now they're all in a box at the front of the class. One of the science teachers at the high school I went to had a bunch of animals around his classroom. All sorts of reptiles, bugs, and arachnids. If someone was caught texting in his class, he would put the phone in the tarantula enclosure. I own 2 tarantulas, harmless little guys. You were able to get your phone at the end of the class, but you have to reach into the enclosure to get it. He always had old phones in there as decoration, so it was always on display what will happen when you use your phone in his class. The same teacher took a year off from school after working there 20+ years and not taking vacation days. He got paid for most, if not all of his time off since he racked up so many PTO days. He ended up writing his own science textbook with his time off. I personally did not have him as a teacher, but my friends did. I gotta say I like this teacher. I mean, the fact that he was that patient and was able to take a year off and write something that would be beneficial to him, took a year off of pay, that's pretty cool. And I don't know, I kind of like the fear factor, get your phone back with the tarantulas, as long as they weren't harmless, as long as he wasn't putting them in a cage with some venomous type of reptile. Story 7. At one of my previous workplaces, management played music as a way of promoting a good mood. They played all sorts of genres so everyone got a chance to listen to something they liked. One person complained that sometimes they had to listen to music they didn't like, so they stopped playing music altogether. This happened in my workplace too. I drive a school bus, and we used to be allowed to play music on the buses. Most drivers enjoyed finding out what channels the kids liked and getting sing-alongs going. You know, making everyone happier. Then some crazy Karen mom called the dispatch office screeching about her daughter coming home and talking about a song this Karen apparently thought was evil or something, and now we aren't allowed to play anything on the radio while kids are on the bus. Story 8. At a previous job, we got full uniforms. Shirts, pants, hats, hoodies, winter coveralls, winter coats, gloves, but we didn't get shoes or boots. Turned out a couple of years before I was hired on, they used to get boots, but one guy would take his boots and sell them, then request a replacement, then sell those. He did this about 20 times before anybody caught on because of municipal bureaucracy being slow to notice. When they caught on, they stopped giving out boots to their employees. Edit. I worked as a park maintenance groundskeeper for Parks and Recreation. Edit. No, it is not like the show. Story 9. Airport security. I remember waiting for my mom to come off a plane at the gate. When I was younger, my parents arrived late to pick me up, so I ended up shadowing some airport workers for around 45 minutes. Wandered through the back and the break room a bit, had access to all the paper tickets behind the stand. My parents may hate that memory, but I thought it was cool. I doubt many kids would get to be in a situation like that again, where a few airport workers who only kinda know the policy but also have never encountered a real-life version of why the policy even exists, so they wind up kind of winging it. Yeah, I remember the difference. When I was a kid, the small town that I grew up in had a very relaxed and small airport, and it was very casual where you could stand out and wait for a plane to land to get a visit from a relative. Now it is, even this small town has a much more secure area where you just can't even be near when the plane lands. It's kind of sad to see that go away. Story 10. Lately, artists who are performing on stage aren't having fun anymore. Why? Because one clown threw an object that actually hurt the artist, and suddenly it started happening over and over again, along with making more artists reluctant to perform or interact with the crowd. Edit. I guess I need to clarify. I mean throwing phones, ashes, and other objects directly at the artist to hurt them, not harmless things that used to be thrown like panties and bras. Yeah, it's not been great for a while. Crowds can just get out of hand, and there's always some nut job that has to go too far. Mind you, I'd rather any of the aforementioned objects than being shot like Dimebag Darrell from Pantera in 2004. You can recover from a phone to the head, not so much a bullet. I thought you meant an actual clown in full clown regalia for a second.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 11. Mark Zuckerberg fracked up so many brains in relationships and other things. I'm not sure what to say. Oh yes, this definitely takes the cake. He let so much privacy get leaked. I have no words for how much I hate him and his apps. But I have numbers. 0 out of 10. This is the answer. Frackin' Facebook. So many hours wasted browsing and posting on it. So many unnecessary fights, family drama, and friend breakups because of trash posted on it. So much rudeness by people hiding behind a keyboard. The 2016 U.S. presidential election turned upside down, not in small part due to the fear, anger, and false information posted on Facebook. I could go on and on. Story 12. Every policy at every company I've ever worked at or owned was because of one person abusing something. So whenever you wonder, why the hell do we have to do this? It's because of one douche nozzle who ruined it for everyone else. We had to have cameras installed to monitor who comes in and out of the ladies' bathroom and when because of one person who kept deliberately taking dumps on the floor next to a toilet and covering it in a pile of loose toilet paper. Edit a word. Story 13. The guy who terminated the most isolated tree on Earth. Same with the woman who burned down the oldest tree. Imagine the history the trees lived through. The guy who terminated the most isolated tree on Earth by running into it with his Jeep. The one tree in hundreds of square kilometers of desert, and he somehow hits it with his vehicle. There's also the Alabama fan that poisoned, I believe, a several hundred-year-old tree at Auburn because he likes Alabama. He also admitted to it by name on the radio. Story 14. The Tylenol prisoner. I figure he's directly responsible for the ridiculous amount of overpacking in over-the-counter substances, vitamins, etc. Plastic lid, wrap seal, cap, sealed bottle, cotton, all inside another box or clamshell package. What a jerk. I'm pretty sure the cotton is to keep the pills from shaking around and breaking, but the rest holds true. I've worked in a pharmacy for 5 years. That's correct. If the cotton wasn't needed, it would be gone in a moment. Companies are not going to waste their money on something frivolous. Story 15. The Tylenol prisoner. Wait, that's the same thing as 14. Is there any more? Okay, there's something different here. Tylenol prisoner. What a jerk. Not to mention the people that actually perished. Story 16. Maybe this isn't a single person's fault, but I feel like for those of us with chronic pain from major accidents or syndromes or diseases, the people who abuse opioid use have made it hard for everyone with legit problems. I broke my neck, hip, and 20 other bones in a car accident. My pharmaceuticals are so tightly regulated that if there's a hang-up of even 12 hours, I can run out of meds. And I'm not even taking heavy pain meds, just enough to work. I feel like I'm the lucky one versus stories I hear of cancer patients, people with long-term issues or diseases. Between the pill mills and the pharmacies, those with real issues were fracked. Story 17. Back around the mid-2000s, I was around 10 years old, and I used to go to this place after school called the Boys and Girls Club. They had an area with multiple basketball hoops on a court which we used to play all kinds of games in. One of those games being dodgeball. These were not the big rubber balls, but instead the styrofoam-filled balls with kind of a thin layer of plastic. So otherwise harmless. One of the kids thought it would be a good idea to shove a rock into one of the balls and throw it at someone he didn't like. Well, he ended up throwing it right into that kid's face and broke 2 of his front teeth. We never played dodgeball again. That's some prison yard smeg. Story 18. Previous job, I used to be a hybrid twice a week. One person on their hybrid day decided to slack off work and go out. They got a call from their manager because they were late for a virtual meeting, and the manager heard a lot of background noise like they were at the mall or something. Said person eventually admitted they were not home working, got fired, and now everyone had to be in the office 5 days a week. Here I am sitting in my office moving my mouse every couple of minutes while using online sites on my phone as living proof that you can also slack off when at the office. Story 19. Whoever decided to add YouTube Kids on YouTube? Now everything is demonetizable. Honestly, the person who decided the entire internet should bend over backwards and be child-friendly is insane. I don't want to watch a content creator avoid at all costs being a potty mouth. Oh, I can so relate. I have to substitute so many words. Or talking about topics that kids wouldn't like just because some parents don't like that it exists. On top of that, it doesn't even work, as YouTube Kids is filled with cartoons redubbed with creepy content and things kids shouldn't listen to anyways. Story 20. That stupid baseball player that took like 10 ephedra and perished of a heart attack. My mom and I used to take one and clean the whole house. Why can't people be responsible with their substances? Damn, I was just talking about this. Hydroxycut and many things were my jam. I used to take ephedrine all the time in the early 2000s. It was such a good alternative to caffeine, but the runny noses were the worst. Story 21. The American mongrel who said, all cashiers must stand for their entire shift because that's good customer service. Because obviously when you've got a crummy worker that treats customers like smeg, you blame the damn seat. Now get out back to the front of your register, Samantha. I don't care that you're recovering from foot surgery. If I gave you a chair, I'd have to give everyone a chair, and that's not good customer service. Story 22. The elementary school I went to let 6th graders go on an overnight trip to a lodge where we could go skiing and snow tubing. My dad volunteered as a parent and was supervising by letting me and 5 other girls pile on top of one tube down a steep hill, and we all went flying. 2 of the girls busted their arms when we all landed in a pile. It looked like a cartoon. Anyway, after that, no more sleepovers at the lodge, and the tale has it that 30 years later, everyone at the school still blames my dad. Story 23. The guy who attempted to smuggle a bomb in his shoe in 2001. Now we all have to suffer taking our shoes off at airport security every damn time we fly. Also, whoever did the thing with liquids that convinced security that more than 3.4 ounces of shampoo was potentially deadly can take right off. Story 24. Mark Zuckerberg fracked up so many brains and relationships. Whoop. Another repetition of a previous story. Okay, moving on. Story 25. The toothbrush mustache. Michael Jordan tried. It didn't catch on. Damn Michael Jordan, ruining a perfectly good facial hair option for everyone. Story 26. My primary school used to do relatively frequent trips to a local zoo until one boy decided to vault the fence and punch a penguin. I wish I was joking. Story 27. The name Adolf has got to be up there. Absolutely. While not nearly as destructive, having the last name Dahmer has got to suck pretty bad. Story 28. My 3rd grade bully got mad because I didn't want to include her in my version of tag game. She went to the teacher and told on me, and then it had to be announced in front of the class that my game was officially banned. Frack you and your big onion head, Raina. Story 29. I'm a contractor and I work in different kinds of plants and mills. In one mill I worked at, we had a gravy job. 2 hours of easy work and got paid for 12 hours. Well, one guy decided he was going to charge them for 16, and now we get 2 hours for the job. Story 30. Happy hour for discounted alcohol has been banned in Massachusetts, USA since 1984 after 2 girls perished in an automobile accident following a happy hour session. You know, back when the drinking age was 18 instead of 21. Almost 40 years ago, too. Story 31. My high school debutante ball after party. 150 people were lined up to board the buses, and one of the popular guys kicked and shattered a bus door, so they promptly left, and we were all told to go home. He wasn't very popular at all after that. Story 32. The religious fruitcake mother who said that Halloween was satanic, so that ended the kindergarten costume parade. Story 33. Osama bin Laden changed the way we travel as far as security is concerned. It's no fun feeling violated by the TSA. Story 34. The person who apparently choked on a lollipop at my bank, and now we don't get lollipops anymore. Story 35. The guy who claimed vaccines cause autism has some serious blood on his hands. Again, a repetition of what was said before. Story 36. Not having to take your shoes off before boarding a plane. Frack you, Richard Reed. Story 37. Air travel was ruined by a handful of buttholes 22 years ago.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.